Today in Social Studies 20, we are going to look at civic nations so we can explain the relationship between nations and nation states, or if you prefer, between nations and countries, because remember, nation state and country are synonyms. So we've already talked about what defines a nation. It's a group of unified people. But sometimes people identify their country as the nation. So, how the heck does that work? A country or a nation state, depending on what language you want to use, is the land that a person is born to, resides in, or has citizenship in. It's a political state. It's an area of land that is unified politically. They have, through law and through potentially constitution. So, is Canada a nation? It can actually be up for debate, but the strongest argument for Canada being a nation, and the one I think most people would agree that it is a nation as opposed to just a country, is by looking at civic nationalism. A civic nation is a nation that is created by a group of people, likely a group of people that is diverse, that don't necessarily share those indicators we talked about before of ethnicity, culture, and language. But what they do share is that they agree to live according to the same values and set down a set of laws that enforce those values. The laws are important because they reflect the type of society that people want to live in. There is buy-in a civic nation. These are the laws that I agree to live by. These are the laws that I want to live under. It's not just democracy. You can have a civic nation that's not necessarily democratic, but most democracies are civic nations in that way. That the people set out a rule of law and their representatives are the ones who help build that and they can give their feedback on it. So, laws in Canada express the values that we have chosen to embrace and the values that we agree to live by as part of our citizenship in this country and potentially in this nation. For us, this is laid out in our Constitution, the supreme set of laws in Canada, and included in those laws are the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And we have to remember that the laws of the Constitution are difficult to change. The Constitution is the basic set of laws throughout our country. And even though that might not seem like a big deal, because we live in a constitutional democracy and everyone who was born in Canada has lived under that constitutional democracy for their entire lives, constitutions are not necessarily the norm. And we tend to forget that in Western culture. People fought and died to have constitutions laid out in some countries. They felt that they were worth it to have this idea of civic nationhood of that everyone agrees to set down. Now for Canada, not so much. We didn't have to deal with bloody revolution, although there are still parts of Canada that are pushing for more equality in the Constitution as well, particularly when it comes to the country's obligations to the First Nations. But our Charter of Rights and Freedoms are ingrained in our Constitution. They are part of that fundamental set of laws that we all agree to. And because the Constitution is both the supreme law and the laws of the country have to be consistent with the Constitution in order to be valid, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms actually limits the ability to make laws so that we cannot have laws that violate our fundamental human rights. The idea of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is that it is there to protect Canadians. It is our guarantee of these rights are our inalienable rights that everyone possesses, every Canadian possesses. And all levels of government must be guided by that charter. So, how does this connect? Well, of course, the Charter and the Constitution itself are both the laws and the values. The Constitution is the law, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is the values that Canadians have agreed to live by. When someone immigrates into the country, they and becomes a Canadian citizen, they have naturalized and they are agreeing to abide by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. When we are born, we are taught our rights and our responsibilities to the nation, and that is civic nationalism. It is a set of laws and a mutual shared respect for those laws that create a common code and a common set of values that unite the people.